Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Well, I don't know if I've ever seen so many twists and turns, but there is some finality to the Jaire Alexander situation. It's not the one that I was hoping for. It's not the one that most of us were hoping for, but it is an answer. After being 95% sure he was gone and then 95% sure he was back, we are now 100% sure he is gone. The Green Bay Packers have cut cornerback Jaire Alexander. Still don't have full details, but it does sound like essentially kind of like we were thinking the Packers were willing to let him come back, but it was going to be on a severely reduced contract. It sounds like they were looking for a 1-year contract. They were looking for a lower incentive-based contract, and they were not even close. Jair was nowhere near looking for that much of a reduction. He seemed to know or believe that he would make more on the open market, and he's probably right about that. And so they were just miles apart. And after the June 1st designation, or the June 1st, I don't want to say deadline because it's not really a deadline, but after June 1st hit, it provided a little bit more cap flexibility to where the Packers could save quite a bit of money over the next couple of years. And so when it became clear, and it sounds like it became clear a long time ago that a trade was out the door. Sounds like they were having some conversations with teams. We'll get into some of the specifics of what I'm seeing so far. This is relatively new. But it sounds like earlier in the season, there was some interest in trading for Jair. There were some talks that were had, but nobody was willing to pay the price. Nobody thought Jair was worth his contract, and they were not going to pay that. And there was just, similar to the Jair thing, the gap is just too wide to bridge the gap. And so they figure, well, we're going to step aside and hope that they cut him, and then we'll go rush to the phones and see if we can pick him up. And so I'm sure there's a mad dash right now among NFL teams to go out and pay the guy. We'll go over some of those potential options to where he could go. Obviously, I have no desire to see Jaire Alexander. I have full expectation that he's going to play every single game this year, just because that's just how that goes, you know what I mean? I can't believe you cut him. Especially if he was kind of like, halfway sitting out. He's just going to power through everything and try to force his way on the field. But it's over, folks. I don't know if it's good news, but kind of the good news is that there's always an element of just feeling uncertain about where we're at with Jair, because Jair is always sort of a half player, Like, Jair's our number one corner, for sure. However, he's getting older. Also, he only plays about half the games in a season generally, so I don't know how much you can really count on him short-term or long-term. And so there's kind of this hesitation where it's like, we're pretty good, but bad, and I don't know what to... Now it's very clear where we're at. I mean, maybe not very clear, because I don't know what this group is going to look like. There's a lot of optimism. I don't necessarily have the same amount of optimism with this group of corners. I know that, for about 4 games at the end of last year, they were very, very good or whatever, but it's going to take a little bit more than that to prove that these are actually really good corners. But it kind of just is what it is right now. I know everybody immediately wants to run out and say, oh boy, we got to go do something now. No, we don't. We did something when we got Hobbs. That was the plan. That was the whole thing. That's why we went out and got the guy. Oh, we need to get Rasul. No, Rasul's a very bad football player. That wouldn't help us very much. We got to go get, Jalen Ramsey, which, he is a current Miami Dolphin, so that would have to be a trade. So we'd have to trade for 31-year-old Jalen Ramsey. I mean, maybe, maybe, I don't know. I really struggle to envision that the Green Bay Packers are going to trade away draft capital for a guy that's going to play for like a year, maybe 2. I just don't really envision that happening at all. That feels like a very panicked move that fans want and that GMs generally don't, especially the Green Bay Packers. Generally don't tend to panic. But it also makes sense when you look at, why did this happen right now? Starting tomorrow for me, today for you, is mandatory minicamp. mandatory minicamp, as we had been told, Jair was planning to show up for that, which means he would be collecting a paycheck. So they were not really interested in having him in there and, paying him to be there and all that stuff, especially if he's, who knows if he's going to participate or what's going to happen. I don't know. Elton Jenkins reportedly is going to be there. So I think that'll be a good thing, get him in the building. And, while the boys are out there working, let's sit him and his agent down at the table and see if we can hammer something out. Speaking of mandatory minicamp, before we circle back, I've been saying I'm not really sure how this works in terms of media availability, so I didn't know if there'd be more content for us. Turns out there is. The plan is, so it's a 3-day thing. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then it's dead period. Saturday's Flag Day, by the way. Good old calendars, man. Just now I know everything that's happening in the world. Get you a nice flag of some sort. Or for my Wisconsinites, get you a nice flag. Get a nice flag. Get a flag, put it in a bag. Make sure it doesn't sag. Anyways, so there is expected to be 3 days of media availability. That said, any negative rain or weather or whatever, they tend to take it inside, and there will probably be limited, if any, media availability. Furthermore, I know in other years past, day 3, they've kind of opted for sort of a team building sort of a deal. They go bowling or whatever the case may be. So I'm hoping for 3 days of, solid media coverage, the whole 9 yards. We'll see how that goes. I'm probably going to go over to PackersGames.com, put up a couple of polls. So I'm hoping you guys will go in there and play around with it a little bit. Again, all you got to do is register an account. Don't have to pay or anything. And it'll be things like who's going to be lined up first at left tackle, who's going to be first at right guard, things of that nature, just kind of for fun. Should be relatively easy, but who knows? There might be some surprises there. That's the fun in it. But there's also confidence wagering. So every week you get 1,000, coins or something. And you get to wager those throughout the week. And so you can put $10 down on Rashid at left tackle, or you could put all 1,000 down on Sean Ryan at right guard. But there's a leaderboard, so it'll track your score, your ranking, what percentage you get right, that whole thing. So be on the lookout for that, or head over there now. By the time you're hearing this, it should be all up and set up and whatnot. But I'm guessing that's what spurred the timeline. Is the Packers saying, we got to get this done. Either you're going to be here or you're not going to be here, but we're not going to have this bleed into mandatory minicamp of you just lingering but, not wanting to be here or whatever. So anyways, why don't we do this? Let's take our first break. I want to start by kind of just going back through the timeline, just kind of understanding what all happened. We'll look at the contract and see the implications from that, and we'll see where that kind of leaves us. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so to start with, I put together a little timeline of injuries and issues, most of this being injuries, but just to give kind of a background into what the heck happened. 2018 to 2025 timeline. Obviously, his more serious injuries began later, but actually, in reality, the signs started showing pretty much right away, including his rookie season. September 30th of 2018, he suffered a groin injury week 4 versus Buffalo. He missed the rest of the game. He also missed weeks 5, 6, and 7 due to that groin injury. He returned week 8 against LA, but December 30th of that year, he re-aggravated the injury and missed week 17, which was the final week of the season, against the division rival Detroit Lions. So as a rookie, he missed 4 games. 2019 had a real nice bounce back, played all 16 games, 2 picks, elite cover corner, completion rate allowed 51.7%, so it was all solid. However, this was kind of the first sign of sort of very minor, but locker room issues. You might remember October 2019, after a surprising loss to the Giants in London, quarterback Aaron Rodgers publicly rebuked Alexander for his post-game comments. Jair said, "I'm not worried, but if we lose next week, then I'm worried." Aaron Rodgers said, "Ja's my guy, but we don't need to be talking like that." Again, very minor, but it was just sort of a, Jair being off the cuff. I'm going to say what I say. I'm going to do what I want. and Rodgers being more of the veteran coming in going, that's not how we talk, that's not how we act in the locker room. So 2018 was injuries. 2019, as minor as it may be, were kind of the first signs into that whole deal. 2020 was the perfect season. He did miss a game, but he played 15 of 16 games. He was his first time being a Pro Bowl selection. He was first team All-Pro honors, 91.1 PFF coverage grade, allowed less than 400 receiving yards, 14 pass breakups, completion rate was below 50%, just freaking dominant. So this is peak Jair, right? Unfortunately, everything was just completely downhill from here. 2021. In October of 2021, he suffered a significant right shoulder injury to his AC joint. Week 4 at the Pittsburgh Steelers while tackling Najee Harris. On October 9th of that year, he was placed on IR. The team hoped to avoid surgery with some natural healing approaches. He missed 13 consecutive games from Week 5 through Week 18. He only played 4 regular season games that year. He returned December 29th, 2021. He was activated from IR to return into the playoffs. He started the NFC Divisional Playoff game against San Francisco 49ers, where he only played 8 snaps. Despite that, still recorded an interception. There was also, again, some cracks here as far as things being said. Jair says, if it's September, I make that tackle, for sure. But I had no intention of going into that game and tackling. He was referring to a missed tackle, so somehow he had a pick and a missed tackle in this very limited amount of time. But he had a missed tackle in the game and basically said, well, my shoulder hurt, so why would I tackle the guy? Late in the game, on a critical 3rd and 7, the 49ers ran a draw play to Deebo Samuel. Alexander lined up in the slot, had a clear shot to stop Samuel short of the first down marker, but missed the tackle. Samuel gained 9 yards, securing the first down, which set up the 49ers' game-winning 45-yard field goal by Robbie Gould, ending the Packers' season with a 13-10 loss. Alexander admitted he lunged instead of wrapped and was not mentally prepared to tackle, as his focus was on covering receivers. Alexander explained that while his shoulder was physically capable of handling contact, he wasn't mentally ready to tackle after months of avoiding it during recovery. He noted the plan was to deploy him in situations where tackling would be unlikely, but the unexpected run play caught him off guard. He expressed frustration, stating the missed tackle pissed me off, he said, and fueled his off-season preparation, etc., etc. So it's a snowballing effect, right? 2020, he peaked. 2021, he misses basically the entire season. He comes back, doesn't play a huge role. They try to get him to avoid contact. The game is on the line. He needs to make a tackle, and he kind of throws his body at Deebo freaking Samuel instead of wrapping him up because mentally he wasn't confident enough to throw his shoulder into somebody, and so we go on to lose the game. 2022, this is when he gets his contract extension, which might seem stupid, but at the same time, we don't know that 2021 isn't a fluke. Yeah, 2018 he got hurt, whatever, but 2019, he played pretty much the entire year. 2020, he played pretty much the entire year, was probably the best corner for 2 years. He missed a game, whatever. He'll come back and he'll dominate. At least that's the hope. You certainly can't let him go at this point. So he signs a 4-year, 84. The timing with some of these contracts are so unfortunate. I'm not just trying to make excuses, but it's like if we could just see the negatives. So many times there's like glimmers of negative. But it's certainly not enough to just get rid of a guy that is a great player, and so you give him the big contract, and then the bad thing just continues forever. It's like, what the heck, dude? 4-year, $84 million extension through 2026, $30 million signing bonus, $30 million guaranteed, $21 million average annual salary, which was the highest paid cornerback at that time. He did have a relatively successful season, so it looked like everything was going to pay off. Played and started in 16 games. He was got his second Pro Bowl selection, second team All-Pro honors, had a career-high 5 interceptions, no disputes or off-the-field issues. So now we got 3 years out of 4 where he's a Pro Bowler and everything looks great. There was that one fluky 2021 season. Well, 2023 happens, and now we're about to be 2 for 2. First of all, right out of the gate, there are trade speculations due to his high salary, which immediately doesn't make sense. Like, of course he has a high salary. We just gave him a contract. But this is when that stuff starts to happen. Then he skips in-person voluntary workouts. This is where, again, I was talking about he didn't show up, but he said, I'm training over here, and I feel like I'm better if I train over here. It's like, well, okay. I'm going to take you at your word that that's what's going on. He did attend virtually all the meetings and whatnot, and then he trained like in Florida or something. 2023 was also obviously a very frustrating season where we started to see, remember, there was a lot of, over the last couple of years, a lot of drama. You had the Aaron Rodgers drama, but you also had Devondre Campbell and a bunch of other stuff. Remember, we traded away Rasul Douglas, and there seemed to be this weird thing going on with the cornerback room and some of the players. And so there was talk about the Packers looking to trade players, and obviously they did with some. So it was a very tumultuous situation where it felt like Jair was on the other side. Injury problems occur pretty much right away. He misses 3 games with a back injury, weeks 3 and 4, comes back and then misses week 7. He had a shoulder injury, I'm guessing that's week 7 versus the Rams. Jair said, I've had one this bad before 2 years ago, pretty much the same as 2021, but just on the other shoulder. Oh, no, these are different. So with the back injury, he missed 3, 4, and 7. Then, against the Rams, he gets a shoulder injury. He misses 6 games, weeks 10 through 15, due to that shoulder injury. So he only ends up playing 7 games. Then you had the big incident. December 24th, 2023, Christmas Eve coin toss incident during the Week 16 matchup against the Carolina Panthers. Alexander self-appointed himself as the game captain, though not being designated. After winning the toss, he told officials, I want our defense to be out there, instead of properly saying defer. I forgot about that part, so he didn't even say it right. It nearly cost the team a possession due to the confusion. Alexander had a dismissive response where he said, it's only suiting. I don't think coach knew I was from Charlotte. 3 days later, on December 27th, Jair was announced to have 1-game suspension. This came week 17 against Minnesota, another very critical late-season divisional game for conduct detrimental to the team. He had to forfeit $60,000 in game salary forfeiture. Brian Gutekunst said, unfortunately, Jair's actions prior to the game in Carolina led us to take this step as an organization. We have an expectation that everyone puts the team first. Coach Matt LaFleur revealed deeper issues, saying it had nothing to do with that whole incident. It's never for one thing. I think there's a lot of lessons along the way from everybody involved. So again, a lot of stuff that I kind of forgot about, and that's a fair point, right? It's not just one thing, meaning there's obviously been more things than this. And we kind of knew about it, right? There was this weird thing going on. I think it had something to do with why they got rid of Rasul. Like there was something was off. Jair said, yeah, I was surprised by the suspension. I thought maybe I'd get fined. In total, including the suspension, he missed 10 games, 9 to injury, 1 to suspension. 2024, the final straw. January of 2024, he posted a cryptic Instagram message using past tense, saying, thank you, God, thank you, Lambo, for 6 years. Thank you for those who showed love throughout my journey. Then, season starts off, and right away you get the early season injuries. He misses weeks 4 and 5 with a quadricep and groin injuries. Had a pretty strong start with 2 picks in the start of the season, weeks 1 and 3. Looks like he had 4 total pass deflections, but immediately goes off the field. Then on October 27th, 2024, he tore his PCL in his right knee versus Jacksonville week 8 on the final snap of the game. November 17th, 2024, he attempted a comeback versus Chicago. He played 10 snaps before re-injuring it. Jair says, I just tried to give it a go. I went out there and expletive. All I could really give was 10 plays, and then I just felt something. He didn't end up playing. I don't believe he was ever put on IR until December 31st, 2024. He had season-ending PCL surgery. He missed the final 8 regular season games, plus the playoffs. ESPN's Rob Demovsky reported multiple team sources have privately expressed their frustration with Alexander's inability to stay healthy and or play through injuries. There's a second part that's kind of important. I mean, not being out there matters no matter what. If we can only count on you for 6, 7, 8 games, then you're only worth so much, right? But if you're also maybe not putting out as much as we think you can, that's a secondary and pretty serious problem. Coaches forced to prepare 2 game plans weekly due to the uncertainty. In total, 7 games played, which is 35.5% of defensive snaps. 2025, you had the January exit. January 1st, 2025, he underwent arthroscopic knee surgery. January 4th of 2025, he was placed on IR officially. January 13th, locker room cleanout day. He declined interviews and said he had nothing good to say. Teammate Keyshawn Nixon publicly lobbied for the number 1 cornerback position, which is something we probably all should have paid a little closer attention to. January 16th, 2025, GM Brian Gutekunst appeared more definitive about other players returning than Alexander. On February 15th, 2025, ESPN reported strong indications that Alexander's time with the Packers will end. February 26, 2025, NFL Network reported Packers, quote, open to moving him for the right price. This is also in and around the time that we'll get to in a minute. Reports are coming out that they had conversations with other teams about trades and they just couldn't quite get it done. March 25th, GM Brian Gutekunst's public frustration at NFL owners meeting. He says, we invested a lot in Jair and want to make sure if he's not going to be on our football team helping us win games that we get something back for that investment. That obviously did not happen. Goes on to say it's been really, really frustrating for not only him as a player, but us as a club. A couple other notes here. We'll get into some of the details, but there were some trade attempt fails. Buffalo Bills were among teams showing interest. Trade agreements reached with unnamed team, but that fell through. Reason being Alexander refused to restructure his $17 million salary, which is what he would need to do if he wanted to help the Packers, which is another thing. The Packers would need help from Jair, and they probably could have done something if he would have just been flexible and a lot. I don't know. I'm not trying to 100% put it on Jair, but the Packers needed Jair's help if they were going to be able to facilitate a trade. And I think Jair, and I said this a long time ago, it made the most sense to Jair to just say, nah, screw you. Let's just start with a clean slate. You cut me, and I'm going to go get a whole new deal somewhere else. But he refused to restructure his $17 million salary, so the Packers weren't able to get anything done, and he preferred an outright release to choose his own destination. May 27, 2025, Packers offered a restructured contract with performance-based incentives. Alexander wanted guaranteed money. Kids will not stop screaming, dude. Alexander wanted guaranteed money. Team wanted games played incentives. Alexander skipped voluntary workouts. He forfeited $700,000 in workout bonuses. In June 9th, 2025, Packers announced the release of as a post-June 1 cut, 1 day before mandatory minicamp. Financial impact, $17 million. Cap saving, $17 million dead money split across 2025-2026. Career totals, 38 games missed, 37 injury, 1 suspension. Final availability, less than 40% of defensive snaps in 3 of his 4 last seasons. He played 34 games out of a possible 68 from 2021 to 2024. Total statistical summary, in 2018, he missed 4 games due to a groin injury. 2019, he was healthy. 2021, 1 game. 2021 game. 2021, he missed 13 games. None in 2022, and then 10 in 2023, one of those being suspension, and 8 additional in 2024. Performance when healthy, 2-time Pro Bowl selection, 2-time All-Pro honors, career completion rate of 51.7%, 2020 being his elite season of a 91.1 PFF coverage grade and 400 less than 400 allowed. So the point is you can it's just a really, really unfortunate thing. It was a great selection. He was a great player. The injuries are just a serious problem, and there's nothing you can really do about it. You understand why the Packers tend to like or not really like the smaller players. This is why. Not 100% that it's because he's small. You know, a lot of bigger guys like Musgrave and Watson can't stay healthy either, but they just worry that some of these smaller guys take a beating, and it's just it takes a toll. And so, again, it's an unfortunate thing. My preference through this has been pretty steady in terms of saying I would like to bring him back. I understand the problems, and I understand that he's probably not worth the money. I also think we freaking have it, and I'd just rather him be out there than not. But I understand if you're going to do things the right way and you're going to try to make sure that your cap lines up with the value and you're not overpaying players, that paying Jair his full salary is almost guaranteed to be a problem. The counter is that we're sitting with $40 million in cap space and nothing to do with it. But, money carries over. We'll figure it out. But I tell you what, why don't we take our final break and we'll go through some of the other little details here. We got a video from Mark Murphy kind of talking about it. He's already in vacation mode. He's out on his golf course. He has a golf course, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. Just living the dream. But we'll see if we can dig up a couple little additional details, and then we'll get up out of here. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Alrighty, so digging into this a little bit, kind of touched on it, but Packers sounds like they offered him a reduced incentive-laden 1-year deal that would have made him a free agent in 2026. He disliked it and rejected it based on the structure. Thought process being he wanted more guarantees. Packers actively were trying to trade him in March and during the NFL draft, but negotiations fell through. Apparently, the Buffalo Bills showed real interest and held trade talks with the Packers, but ultimately moved on and drafted cornerback Maxwell Hairston in the first round. May still be interested, but probably are going to end up being a little bit less interested with Hairston being on the roster. Packers had a trade in place with another team, but it collapsed when the other team wouldn't pay Alexander's full $17 million salary, and Alexander refused to take less. Looking at the salary cap space, which is kind of a big talking point, releasing Jair frees up $17.1 million in 2025 cap space, giving the Packers over $46 million, third most in the NFL. I've never seen the Packers with $46 million at this stage. I mean, since I've been paying attention, I've never seen anything close to that. The Packers will absorb just over $17 million in dead money split across 2 years, $7.5 million this year, $9.5 million next year. The move also saves $17.5 million in 2026 cap space, addressing future budget constraints. There's also kind of a discourse online as far as, now that we have all this money, a lot of which is going to carry over, plus we're saving money next year, we should go out and do some crazy stuff in free agency. Well, apparently the salary cap for next year wasn't looking super fantastic, and so this more gets us on a better footing as opposed to makes us super rich and ready to go out and do a bunch of crazy stuff. So looking at over the cap right now, they're about $10 million over the cap, meaning, they're spending $10 million more than they are supposed to. Jair is going to get them back in the black. There's also, this is the other thing I don't really like about this, is this whole thing with we're broke, so this isn't going to help us do anything. Has anybody looked at this and said, yeah, we're not paying that? You know how many times that happens? Contracts get restructured all the time. Guys get let go. Kenny Clark's cap number is $31.4 million. There is no planet in which he's going to get anywhere, or that we're going to be paying anywhere near that much for Kenny Clark. So either there's going to be some kind of a potential extension, which is, going to be pretty hard to imagine at 31 years old, but if he balls out this year, it's at least on the table, because his current contract goes through his being 32 years old in 2027. There's going to be talks, I'm sure, of him taking a pay cut, and then obviously there are options as far as just cutting him, in which case the Packers save $14.5 million off of that, and then in 2027 he's completely off the books, which saves $27 million in cap space. So again, on one hand, yeah, the Packers are not in super great shape next year, but on the second hand, the not great shape is because of a lot of fake money. Jair's an example of that, by the way. Oh, we're broke next year because we're paying Jair $27 million. No, we're not, and we never were going to. That was never a thing. That's not a real number. And so instead, what are we paying again? Jair in 2027. Where did that go? Or excuse me, 2026. $9.5 million. Oh, so you mean not 27? You mean 9.5? So that saves like $20 million off of our cap? Oh, okay, got it. This is fake money. Rashawn 28, I don't know, maybe. Kenny 31, no way in the world. Money's going to get moved around. People are going to get cut. They're going to get restructured. They're going to get all kinds of stuff. So much of this money is fake. Now, that doesn't mean we're in great financial shape. I mean, you still have to re-sign guys, and maybe when the dust settles, right, kick Jair off the books, do whatever you got to do with Kenny, and then re-sign your free agents, which include, let's see who our free agents are next year. Plus, the Zach Tom thing. I'm sure, the early years are not going to be massive, but at the same time, there's going to be a big increase compared to what he's currently listed at, which is not even on the top of the list here. I don't even know where he is. Quay Walker, Christian Watson, who else actually matters here? Sean Ryan, Romeo, Zach Tom, Daniel Whalen, Aaron Mosby. Again, most of these are small, but, we'll see. Small and or maybe. Sean Clifford, Rasheed Walker, that's kind of a decision to be made there for sure. That's about, I mean, there's a billion names on here, but most of these are probably not going to be here / don't care. But we got a decision to make at wide receiver, right? Dobbs and Watson. There's also other guys, Mecole Hardman and whatnot, but again, Bo Melton, I don't think Bo's going to do much for us here. But, that's a whole other thing looking into 2026. What happens after Jair? What happens with Kenny? What happens with all these different things? Where are we going to end up? Plus, again, the amount of money we're probably going to be carrying over into next year, I think we're going to be okay. So, again, on one hand, I appreciate people that understand the cap and are like, yeah, next year isn't great, but understand it just a little bit deeper, please, because the constant doom and gloom from just looking at something and saying, oh, that's bad, rather than looking just a little bit deeper and go, oh, never mind, that's fake. We're not paying that. I think we're going to be okay. So, as it stands right now in the cornerback room, we're back to Keyshawn being presumably CB1. I'm guessing Valentine will be the other boundary guy with Nate Hobbs in the slot. I know some people want to say that that's not the case. I tend to think that's the case. The other option, maybe there's multiple, but the other option presumably would be, you could swap that, put Keyshawn in the nickel and Nate Hobbs out in the boundary. I think that's ridiculous. You could have Nate and Keyshawn on the boundary and Javon Bullard in the slot. I freaking hate that. I think some people would like that because they, number one, believe the Nate Hobbs hype that he's actually really good on the boundary, which there's just no information of that anywhere in the world, and probably overvalue Javon Bullard / don't really understand how bad and detrimental and terrible he was as a slot last year. I do think this pushes him in the slot a little bit more. Doesn't have to be, but my dream of let's just put him at safety and leave him there got a little bit more complicated with Jair not being in the building. We do need another guy that can play there. And so if Keyshawn goes down, you probably would have, for example, Nate Hobbs going in that spot and Javon going in the slot. If you have Nate Hobbs going down, you probably have Javon filling in that spot. So he is kind of like the next man up at corner, basically. I mean, if Valentine goes down, Hobbs is going to take that spot, Javon goes into the slot, right? So I think that's probably how it goes. Now, something that I also have been a big fan of, and it's probably a pipe dream, but I'm going to keep the dream alive until it's officially dead, Kalen King, 7th round pick. I obviously really liked him in college, not that that means anything. He did have little short stints that we got to see him, and it sounded like he was doing quite well. Does that mean a lot? It really doesn't. But it means more than if he looked bad. We'll put it that way. So I'm hopeful that we get to hear a little bit about Kalen King and that he's playing well and progressing well. It would be nice that at the very least, if we could have him as the backup boundary guy and maybe have Javon as just the backup slot guy. So that, if Hobbs goes down, maybe you have Keyshawn go in the slot, Kalen King boundary, but probably not. If Keyshawn's your number one, you would have Javon Bullard go into the slot and then just have Keyshawn and Valentine stay out there. However, it would also be nice if you had a situation where, if Keyshawn or Valentine went down, you could just take Kalen King and put him there rather than do the whole reshuffling thing so that Javon could be your slot guy. Let's just leave Nate Hobbs in the slot rather than putting him on boundary, put Kalen King in instead of Valentine, and then you got Keyshawn, King, and Hobbs as your three guys. It doesn't even have to be King. It could be anybody else. It could be this year's pick Micah Robinson. It could be one of the UDFAs. Gregory Jr. has been getting a lot of hype. I don't really care who it is, but, I kind of care who it is. All of them are relatively unlikely, by the way. You got 2 7th-round picks and a bunch of UDFAs. At the same time, Valentine, 7th-round pick. Keyshawn, UDFA. Outside of Bullard, I think Hobbs, was he the 5th-round pick? I think he's like our highest pick. But that's where we're at right now. And I don't really, again, there's a ton of, should we go get Rasul? Let's go get Rasul. Okay, let's do it again real quick. And you can want Rasul if you want Rasul, but let's at least look at what Rasul is right now. First of all, I tend to think there's some bad blood between the Green Bay Packers and Rasul, which is going to not make things great. Even if I'm wrong about everything that was going on before, trading somebody away probably didn't make Rasul super happy. This past year, Rasul Douglas, who is going to be 30 years old very soon, had a 53 PFF grade, and in fact, he really fell off starting week 10. Now, if you find out there was an injury, whatever, I don't know, he was bad all year. But starting week 10, he was awful. 40, 60, 40, 40, 40, 50, 50, 30, 40. Those were his grades to end the season starting in week 10. Absolute dog crap. His coverage grades in that same span, 40, 60, 40, 40, 50, 60, 50, 30, 30. He gave up 3 touchdowns, had 0 interceptions, 3 pass breakups, 117 passer rating when targeted, and had 10 penalties against him. He gave up 570 yards. There was nothing good about Rasul Douglas. The entire year, of all the players in the world that we could go out and entertain. I know Rasul used to be here, and I know that he had like a good year or two, or a decent year or two, which were kind of unusual because he was bad prior to coming to Green Bay also. Let's think a little bit more outside of the box, okay? Can we stop the Rasul Douglas thing, please? I don't understand why. It's not 2022, okay? It's 2025, and we need a 2025 plan. But, all right, I'm going to leave it at that. You guys have a good rest of your day. Jair, thanks for everything, my man. And I guess we'll talk to you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Jair, you were the spark in the storm, the light in our fray, a warrior on the field, kept the shadows at bay. Your swagger was a story, every pick a new page. Now the turf feels so empty, like a locked up stage. The crowd's still chanting, but the echo's grown thin. Your jersey in the wind, where do I begin? You dance through the chaos, a king in green and gold. Now the tale's gone quiet and the nights turn cold. Jair, why'd you have to go? Left us in the dark, no fire, no glow. Your shadow's on the field, but you're out of our sight. Took the heart of the game when you left in the night. Oh, Jair, you were the soul of the fight. Now we're chasing your ghost in the stadium lights. You were still in the secondary, hawk in the sky. Every route you shut down made the doubters comply. A metaphor for grit, you were larger than life. Cut through the noise like a poet with a knife. The playbook's a relic, your name's in the lore, but the locker room's silent, can't hear you no more. I'm picturing your grin, that slide double entendre. Now the memories linger, but the dreams they wander. The city's still calling, but your echoes a tease. Like a breeze through the bleachers, you're gone with the breeze. Personified swagger, you gave heart to the game. Now the scoreboard's a mirror, reflecting the pain. Alliteration of absence, the silence stings sharp. Your departure's a dagger, it's torn us apart. Jair, why'd you have to go? Left us in the dark, no fire, no glow. Your shadow's on the field, but you're out of our sight. Took the heart of the game when you left in the night. Oh, Jair, you were the soul of the fight. Now we're chasing your ghost in the stadium lights. The narrative's broken, no sequel in view. A symbol of loss in the red, white, and blue. repetition of sorrow, your name on my breath. Jair, you left us and it feels like death. With imagery fading, the colors turn gray. Foreshadowed your exit, but I begged you to stay.